Vacations are meant to relax and create unforgettable memories, but sometimes they reveal much more than we expect. Meet the Smith family, Ben, Jill, and their 2 kids. They traveled to Peru for their first overseas vacation, excited to explore and experience new adventures. But when they looked at a photo taken during their trip, they were left in complete shock. What was supposed to be a simple family picture, posing with llamas in the beautiful Peruvian landscape, turned into something much more mysterious. As Ben and Jill scrolled through the photos later that evening, Jill noticed something behind the bushes in the background, something that looked eerily like their late dog, Bruno. How could this be? Was this just a coincidence, or was there something deeper at play? What does this mysterious image mean for their family, and how will it change their lives forever? Watch to uncover the shocking secret hidden in their vacation photo. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. 5 years before the picture was taken, Ben and Jill made their first trip to Peru. They were packed, boarded, and excited to explore the wonders of the country. They both loved to travel and actually met when they were on separate trips 3 years before, in a country where their love would bloom. Ben and Jill met when they were both vacationing separately. They had both been young, curious adults looking to explore the city of Santorini. It was a popular romantic vacation spot, but they both had little luck with staying in a relationship. Fate would have it, they booked the same vacation tour. After exchanging contact details, they promised to catch up. They were both from the same city and enjoyed having a familiar face while traveling in a foreign country. They set a plan. Since they didn't come with anyone else, they would pair up. Soon they were falling in love, and passion erupted. After experiencing the most romantic vacation, they made a deal. If they returned to their respective lives and still wanted to meet after a week, then they would show up to a given location on a set day. Soon they were dating and taking trips like the very first trip. Their very first trip to Peru proved to be less than what they had hoped for. It was their 3rd trip together as a couple, and they had made plans to tour the ancient grounds. They were dressed, fed, and set on their path. They had started on the hike when disaster struck. "Are you okay?" Jill shook her head. Even as she moved to say yes, her body gave out. The pain was now unbearable. Ben, worried, called for an emergency ambulance. Jill felt a jolt in her lower belly. It was a searing pain that she had never felt before. Ben turned concerned. The ambulance ride proved to be a terrifying one for Ben. Unsure of how this would go and filled with only the memory of Jill fainting, Ben was concerned. However, he did his best to answer all the questions he was asked on the way to the hospital. He silently prayed that it wouldn't be too late. They got to the hospital and Jill was rushed into the emergency room. Ben was handed a list of forms to fill while they ran tests on her. He waited in silence, hoping that she would be fine. Finally, after hours of waiting, the doctor stepped out. "Your child is healthy, but there was a lump found pressing against her vertebra. Although it was malignant, the growth of her uterus during pregnancy would likely cause it to press down on her nerve endings." Ben was excited. Jill was pregnant. Sadly, that wasn't the only reason for concern. The doctor explained. The couple was devastated. They didn't even get a chance to celebrate their new child, and now they had to decide to either risk the health of the baby or Jill's health. After a few days of talking, they made a decision. Jill had always wanted to be a mom and wasn't willing to risk her chances. She would keep the baby and brave the consequences. The doctor informed them of the risks. Since the lump was resting on the nerve endings, it could affect everything from her senses to her ability to walk, and the damage could be irreversible. The couple was scared, but their minds were made up. Although they had been warned, the results were unimaginable. In the following months, Jill's condition began to rapidly deteriorate. Although she had previously managed the symptoms, by month 5, her body began to give in, and she was almost completely blind. Still, Jill would not complain. Her baby was healthy, and she would just have to come up with new ways to live. It soon became obvious that Jill would need help in getting her daily tasks done. The couple made another important decision. They welcomed a new family member into the fold, a 12-year-old dog named Bruno. Bruno was a kind golden retriever that quickly bonded with his new family. "We'll be together for a long time, buddy." For the first time in months, Ben could see the old Jill returning. Although she had tried to hide it, dealing with her disability had proven to be difficult for her. One day she looked at her new family and told him. Before they knew it, they were both back in the hospital once more. Although not in Peru, and for good reason, Ben still felt very nervous for his wife. He paced the waiting room with Bruno as they both eagerly awaited the arrival of their newest family member. Moments later, the doors open. Both your wife and the baby are safe. Ben was overjoyed. They had feared that the nerve damage would prove fatal during child delivery. The doctor further explained, "We were able to take out the tumor. You may want to see her yourself." This time the doctor had a lot to say. When Ben walked in, he was shocked to find out that his wife's sight was returning. The doctor explained the miracle. After delivery, her uterus had shrunk, lessening the pressure on the vertebra and allowing the doctors to extract the lump from its location. Jill's sight would return fully in a few months. The couple was excited for the miracle, but even more happy to finally have their baby in their arms. He was a cute bundle of joy, but it wasn't only Jill and Ben who were excited to see their new family member. Bruno barked in excitement as he jumped in an attempt to look at the baby. That was when Jill realized. This was the first time she had ever seen Bruno. She felt the tears well up in her eyes at the first sight of her loyal companion. His soft brown eyes stared back at her. Jill and Ben smiled. Their family was whole. Sadly, things were about to take a turn for the worst. Bruno began to moan in pain suddenly, his brown eyes losing the look of joy and replaced with pain. His moans grew louder, causing the baby to cry and the young couple to fear the worst. They were encouraged to see a vet who told them the unspeakably sad news. "He is sadly very old for a dog. His organs are failing and we can put him on a donor's list, but there is little chance due to his age." The couple was once again devastated. What could they do? In a few days, Bruno's state worsened, and it became clear that it was time to say goodbye. But first, Jill had something to say. "I will never forget you, buddy. Promise you won't forget me." Bruno let out a soft moan before his eyes closed for good, but Jill believed that was his way of committing to their promise. She knew it was too late, but she held her best friend close to her and whispered in his ear. 5 years later, the couple had welcomed a second child, a daughter named Eva, and named their son Peter after a character in Bruno's favorite cartoon. The kids were no longer babies, and they would be able to experience the beauty of a vacation. Seeing this as a perfect time, the couple decided to revisit Peru and finish their vacation. The family vacation was off to a great start. This time, Ben and Jill made sure to get full medical checkups for everyone in the family before going on the trip. They adjusted their plans to be more kid-friendly and set out to have a great time. But coming back to Peru brought up some painful memories. In spite of how Jill felt, she was determined to have fun with her family and make the most of their first vacation abroad in years. The next day, they toured the same trail they had been unable to complete the last time. They were determined to overcome the route. "We have to take a picture." Once they got to the end, Jill and Ben were so excited, even their confused kids were pumped as well. They had completed their path, and they could finally put that part of their lives behind them, not only that they had done it with their family. Ben smiled. The family stood by the grazing llamas and posed for. Ben and Jill were elated. Not only had they accomplished so much, but they had a cute family picture to show for it. They couldn't wait to get back into town to print it. That's where it gets weird. Is that what I think it is? Ben and Jill cuddled together in the hotel room and scrolled through the pictures on the television screen when Jill noticed something in the background. She squinted for a moment, certain her eyes were playing tricks on her. Tapping Ben, she pointed to the hidden image. There, hidden in the image behind the bushes, was something she had never expected. A visit from an old friend. Jill was stunned to see that the mold and lighting effect on the picture created an image that looked like her good friend Bruno. But why would Bruno show up in that photo? He really kept his promise. Ben was confused. He didn't know what his wife was talking about. What promise was she talking about? With tears in her eyes, Jill explained what had happened on the day she said goodbye to Bruno. Jill began to cry. Ben, concerned, asked her what was wrong, fearing the worst again, but she shook her head. Jill smiled. Since losing Bruno, she had been blessed with 2 great children and had married her soulmate, Ben. However, she couldn't fight the feeling of sadness when she thought about the companion who protected her in a moment of vulnerability. But she would take the photo as a reminder that Bruno wanted her to be happy. Ben hadn't realized how much the loss of Bruno still affected his wife. Glad that she finally felt free to be happy, the family made a decision. They would fully experience the wonderful country of Peru and come back to recreate the photo every 5 years in memory of Bruno. With new zeal, the happy family completed their trip. They visited the coolest and most exciting parts of the country, eating local cuisine and playing at the beach, while making sure to take pictures to remember those moments by. Their trip was full on success, but even they couldn't imagine what came next. Jill was glad to be back home a few days later and was stunned when she scrolled through her Facebook. Although she had shared the photo with friends and family, she did not monitor her phone the rest of the vacation, wanting to fully experience the trip. However, when she logged back in, she was greeted with a surprise. Jill was shocked. During her break from the internet, her story had gone viral. Also, she had found a community of women who shared similar stories of loss and experiencing similar medical conditions. Not only had Bruno brought her peace, but he also brought her a new support group to lean on. We all go on vacation for different reasons and often don't even realize the impact it had on us until much later. Other times we get a glimpse of something very special. In the case of Ben and Jill, a simple choice to take a photograph gave Jill the strength she had been looking for.